Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate, the League One podcast. We've got a plethora of guests for you this evening, starting with Daniel Berrisford, or Danny Bezer as he's known, from the Ale and Vale Podcast. Lovely to see you, Dan. Thanks so much for your time. We really do appreciate you coming on. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you lost 7-0 at Barnsley on the opening day. I did have to remind you of that. I'm sorry.
We don't talk about that now, Gabe. That's gone.
Okay, all right. But you've been unbeaten since then. So how do you sort of explain the reaction to the fiasco at Oakwell?
The truth is, if you were at the Barnsley game, and anyone that was there would tell you that at half time, we were the better side. We went in 2-0 down and we were the better side. And if we'd have gone in 2-0 up, you'd have gone, yeah, that's probably about right. And I think Barnsley fans would agree with that. Now, don't get me wrong, second half, we were diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. And Barnsley were clinical, took the chances. And some of our lads looked like they'd given up, I'll be totally honest. And I come away from the game in Barnsley deserved it. I'm not saying they didn't.
Of course.
We then played Fleetwood at home in the Cup and we went 1-0 down after 4 minutes. And you thought, here we go again. Have we got the resolve bounce back? And we were kind of flat. And then Ethan Chislett scored a goal from nowhere. And it just lifted everyone. It lifted the place. And I'll be honest, I come away from the Fleetwood Cup game and we won 3-2. Thinking we've got good attacking players, but we look very open off the ball. We don't look compact. We're not closing down opponents. We're giving chances away left, right, centre. And since that game, we have been solid as anything. We really haven't. I mean, we haven't conceded a goal at home since then, which is Reading at home. We've then played Carlisle at home and last night Crewe. Charlton are the only people score past us since then. They scored 2. Blackpool, we kept a clean sheet away. And we look compact now, but we also look like a side that's going woody sides with the players we've got going forward. And I'll be honest, say it quietly, we look a good side. Now, that's not me saying we're going up or anything, because that's a long, long stretch.
Sure.
But we do actually look a good side that's more than capable of competing a good mid-table, top half mid-table this season.
Yeah, well, that sounds really hopeful, and all credit to the players for responding to that second half at Barnsley. That is the last time I mention it. Don't worry. But I suppose the last few games have kind of been a bit more like the defensive solidity we maybe expected from Port Vale, because I did think that the defensive additions was the area that I was most excited about for Vale, even though I did actually have that going down before the start of the season.
I did notice.
And you know what? I think I look at someone like Alex Iacovitti, who looked like a good signing in terms of the defensive basics. But actually, I watched the highlights of the second half of the game against Carlisle. He actually made some really good attacking runs, a bit like, you're kind of overlapping left centre back. So that shows he's been sort of accustomed to the Vale way very quickly.
Yeah, and the truth is, when we first saw him, we thought we've got a good old-fashioned defender here that's going head it, going kick it, and not do a lot on the ball. As you say, actually, he's quite, I wouldn't say comfortable going forward. He's not a sort of Lewis Cassie we've got on the other side that is comfortable going forward, but he can hold his own, And he's had 2 goals ruled out this season. So actually, he could be on 2 goals by now. He isn't on any, unfortunately. But I tell you what, a great addition he looks. And we've still got Kofi Balmer, who hasn't played a game yet, who we signed on loan from Crystal Palace. Good and I saw him in a friendly. He looks a great player. Unfortunately, he's been injured since pre-season and he hasn't played yet. I think when he comes in, that's really going to add something. Unfortunately, Dan Jones is out at the moment and we don't know how long for. So as it stands at this moment, we've only got 3 centre-halves. And we play 3 centre-halves, 3 fit centre-halves, I should say.
Sure.
And we play 3. So we actually look a bit short at the back. But the other thing that's really made a difference is Funzo Ojo in front of the back 3. And Funzo Ojo has been unbelievable this season. I mean, it's early days, but at this stage, he's in there for player of the season.
Do you know what's really interesting, Dan, about Funzo Ojo is I remember watching him earlier in his career at Scunthorpe, and I thought he was maybe a bit more of an enigmatic type who would have periods in games of being really good, but you don't quite know what you're going to get from sort of 1 minute to the next. And actually at Port Vale, he seems to have just been this sort of steady beacon of reliability. So clearly something's clicked with Funzo Ojo in terms of the solidity he's provided.
Yeah, he reads the game very, very well and he picks up on things, but he also doesn't give the ball away. He's very calm on the ball and he'll drop a shoulder one way, leave his man. And he does the simple things. And when we signed him, he said that I'm here to win the ball and then give it to the footballers. And what we saw last season is actually was much better than that. However, now he's got, and no disrespect to some of the players that from last season, now he's got better footballers around him. We're actually
Yes.
seeing him just win the ball, pass it to the others, let him do it. But then in the 89th minute against Charlton, he's clearing the ball inside our penalty area, and he's then in their box to put it in for a 3-2 win. And even in the 89th minute, he's sprinting the length of the field, and we saw it again at the weekend. He gave the ball away, but he got back and won it before they got a chance to shoot. And it's probably the only time he's given the ball away this season, to be fair.
Well, one of those sort of better footballers, if you like, to use your sort of term for it, Danny, is Ollie Arblaster on loan from Sheffield United. What a start to the season he's had, mate.
If Sheffield United fans or anyone there are watching is terrible, release him and let us have him on a free, because he's going to do nothing. Yeah, what a player. It's one of them that, as a Vale fan, you've got to sit back, watch him and go, whether he's here till January or the end of the season, and we're open it till the end of the season, you've got to sit back and enjoy it, because you don't often get watch a footballer as good as that play at Vale Park every week. To be honest, you don't get watch a footballer as good as that in League One. He is absolutely incredible. For an 18-year, 19-year-old lad, he is unbelievable.
Wow. That sounds really exciting. What a deal you've got yourself there. I do want to bring in Parksy from the Lowdown podcast, Leyton Orient, shortly, but I do have one or two more questions for you, Dan, because I'm really curious about the start Vale have made, because one of the reasons why I did have you going down was because I wasn't sure how highly I rated Andy Crosby against maybe managers that are more established at some of their clubs, like I would say Mark Bonner at Cambridge or Paul Simpson at Carlisle, to use two clubs that in similar boats. And I sort of thought he doesn't have that kind of legendary status. He's not got a fantastic history, because he's mainly been a number two. He doesn't have a fantastic history as a number one, and he doesn't have a hugely elevated coaching reputation in the sense of coming from the absolute elite. But actually, maybe I should have given him more credit for the work that he did, maybe in the promotion season and stepping in caretaker charge last season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. A lot of people don't know Andy Crosby's name because he has been a number two. But what people forget is he was a number two for 17 years. And he's been a number two to Nigel Atkins at every level of the pyramid. He's been a number two in the Premier League because he was with him at Southampton. He was with him at Scunthorpe when they rose up to the Championship. What people don't see is that all the players that have played for Andy Crosby say he is one of, if not the best coach that they've ever had. Now, I know a coach and a manager are two different things. However, what I can say for him is to pick the players up after the opening day and get them, as you say, undefeated since then is unbelievable. His subs have pretty much been spot on every game, and every sub he's made has come on and impacted the game. Blackpool Vale fans at the time he made the subs, we went defensive about 20 minutes ago to hold on for a 0-0. Everyone thought, oh, it's a bit early for that. We held on for a 0-0. Last night we played Crewe in the Cup that, as everyone knows, is only 12 miles down the road, and they seem to have this little thing about us that we're a rival, supposedly. He made 7 changes, and we played 2 players that have come through the youth team that made the first start last night. And again, people looked at it and goes, that's a big gamble against these, because these are up for it. These have sold out the away end for the first time ever at Vale Park, and they come in force. We go and beat them. And you know what? What he's very good at is tactically changing things. He looks at it to change it. But I've met him a few times at the club, and he's a genuinely nice bloke. And he's the sort of bloke, when you speak to him, you want to run through a brick wall for. And I'm sure he's got all the players on side. And there was stuff the promotion season from Vale where they talk about, at the start of the season, they got the players sit down and talk about the vulnerabilities, about the personal life, and it netted them as a team. That was all Andy Crosby. The night before Wembley, he got videos of the families of the players to tell them how proud they were, how much they were looking forward to the day. And that got the players up for it. That was Andy Crosby. The man management is unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what my sort of thinking, sort of what stands out to me about Andy Crosby was, I'm sure you remember winning at Hartlepool in the promotion season. Yeah. And I don't know whether Darryl Clark was manager for that game or whether he just came on the pitch. He just came on the pitch afterwards.
He's obviously, his family from Hartlepool, Darryl Clark, and his daughter lived in Hartlepool. And that was the first game he came to watch since the tragedy happened with his eldest daughter. So he was there with his other daughter watching the game from the stand.
Sure. But there was this sort of what seemed to me a slightly unusual atmosphere where it was like, because Darryl Clark was the manager, no one wanted to sing Andy Crosby's Black and White Army because it felt like almost disloyalty to Darryl Clark, which I totally understand. And what I thought was a lovely touch from Darryl was when he kind of went over to the fans and said, "This man," but I kind of liked it from Andy Crosby because he was so reluctant to do it, and it was like so reluctant to kind of take the acclaim for it, and that kind of warmed me to Andy Crosby a little bit on a human level, because I can tell that he's someone who's just very modest and goes about his job and doesn't expect loads for it. So I really like that side of him. I suppose that brings me to transfer business for the remaining couple of days of the window, Dan. Do you reckon you'll be able to bring another striker in?
Yeah, I think we probably want 2 strikers coming in, if I'm totally honest, because it's kind of a known secret, if you like, round Vale that Alice Harrison wants out. So we've had interest in him.
Darryl Clark, didn't he, Dan? So
yeah, he's a Darryl Clark player. And don't get me wrong, I'd be more than happy for Alice Harrison to stay. I think he's a good player. However, if he goes, we need 2 strikers. For me, we still need cover at the wing-back area because we've only got 2 out-and-out wing-backs at the club.
Mitch Clark can play either side, though, which is handy.
He can, but we've only got then Conor Grant, because Tom Sang, for me, watching him play as a centre midfielder who will fill in at wing back for you when he needs to. We've got James Plant, who's come through the academy, who's a great prospect, but actually he's an attacking winger, not a wing back, although he's doing a great job for us. I'd love to see us bring in cover at wing back, 2 strikers, and maybe even a centre half, depending on how bad Dan Jones' injury is and how long he's going to be out for.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can find the remaining additions required in the last couple of days of the window. It sounds like you might even need 3, 4, 5 signings, possibly, from what you've described there. And hopefully Andy Crosby can be given the backing, because it sounds like he's done a fantastic job so far. So thanks for joining us, Dan, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, cheers, Dan. Appreciate that. Delighted to be joined now by Adam Parks, or Parksy as he's known colloquially, from the Lowdown podcast of Leyton Orient. Thanks for waiting, first of all, mate. Really appreciate your time. Just talk to us how you're feeling as an Orient fan after that fantastic performance against Cambridge at the weekend, which got you your first win of the season.
Monkey off our back, isn't it? We got to win. That's the biggest thing, right? Starting the season with as many injuries as we did, and obviously it wasn't ideal losing the first 3 games. We were probably unlucky in 2 of those. So, I think I said it before. I wasn't worried. I'm still not worried. I just said to Matt Farley when we've just done a bit for our podcast before the game of Stevenage on Saturday, is that I still think we're going to finish above Stevenage no matter how they've started. So, we got to win. And to be honest, it kind of shows the levels of where the league's at. And I think the fixture list might have weighed heavily on us at the beginning of the season as well. So, yeah. We're quite happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you feel like that performance against Cambridge was kind of coming for Leyton Orient, based on you weren't a million miles away at Blackpool, where you drew 0-0, and then at Wickham played very well with 10 men and probably deserved something from that one? Were you sort of reasonably confident that kind of performance was coming?
I don't think we've ever been worried about our performances per se. I think it's more about the clinical nature of League One. It's probably taken us a few games to get up to speed, and a few hard decisions that Richie Wellens has had to make with the team. On Saturday, he dropped Omar Beckles and Joe Pigott and we went back to a back 4, and it was Ed Turns at Dan Happy at centre back, and then we had Shaq Ford up top instead of Joe Pigott. So I think we've played well. And it's not kind of the 4-0 against Portsmouth was an aberration. We played really well against them, but there was just the moments in quality that made a big difference.
The first half was actually really good against Portsmouth, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And Wickham, we had Dan Happy sent off in the 51st minute, and we were outplaying them, and we outplayed them after. It was just a couple of silly mistakes. So, barring a crazy referee's decision against Blackpool to not send off the Blackpool player and award us a penalty when Joe Pigott is 3 yards out from goal and flattened, I still can't get over that. We'd have a few more points, but no. The general consensus amongst the Orient fans on Twitter and just generally a mood around the club, I think, is that was the best we played in a long time. And we're talking about League Two as well. And a lot of fans are saying that performance against Cambridge on Saturday was one of the most complete performances that they've actually seen from an Orient side. So all looks good. And when you factor in that we're still missing a few players, especially our star signing, Dan Ajayi, I think with this last week of the window, or last few days of the window, could be quite interesting to see what we do. Because there's murmurings that we're going to get rid of a senior player on loan to somewhere, and then we're going to bring someone in. But we don't know that. That's just conjecture. So we'll see what happens in the world of Wellens land.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. I suppose it's a massive credit to Shaq Ford, Parksy, that it was such a great performance from Orient with someone that's reasonably sort of youthful, I suppose, in terms of senior football. That might have been his first start in the EFL, I think. And he started down there. I just wonder whether he gave you a little bit more mobility or a little bit more pace than maybe you get with Joe Pigott, that maybe suited the performance that you ended up putting in.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the way that Richie Wellens sets up his teams, he likes to press. He likes to have people busy, and it's not necessarily about a central striker scoring 20 goals in a season. Maybe Joe Pigott has kind of suffered from not being up to speed at the beginning of the season. So, I'm sure Joe Pigott will come good and he'll be part of a successful squad in League One. It's just, unfortunately, right now, Shaq Ford has given us kind of what Charlie Kelman gave us last year, or Aaron Drinan gave us last year. And that's that mobility up top. And kind of, I suppose, in a way, you wouldn't suspect that Mark Bonner wouldn't do his homework on a player like Shaq Ford, but he was out of the league last year on loan, and so when you look at a player like Joe Pigott, you're going to have lots of video, lots of scouts would have seen him, whereas Shaq Ford would have been playing for York City, and therefore, how many people have seen the lad? So, it was a tidy finish. It weren't far out. It was only about 4 or 5 yards out, but it was a good finish, a striker's finish, and for all intents and purposes, he did well.
Yeah, a bit of a wild card effect potentially there. And again, I kind of want to, that was the other thing I really wanted to talk to you about was Rule Soteriou, because I'm going to make a confession here, Parksy. I watched the highlights and I actually mistook Rule Soteriou for George Moncur, because I felt like his control in tight areas just sort of resembled Moncur. I hadn't clocked that Moncur was number 14 and he was actually on the bench for that game, which is a really exciting thing, I suppose, as well, by the way. But does that show that Soteriou, having come through as a sort of a versatile forward that would play more on the front line, he can actually operate between the lines and take on that sort of creative role behind the front three?
Potentially. I mean, I will never shy away when I have an opinion, because opinions are like we can't say. But I said last season around January that we should have loaned out Rule Soteriou, and we should have, maybe got someone else in on loan or what have you. He did okay. We won the league, and I'll be honest with you, I'm pleasantly surprised with how he has developed going into this season and the way that he's playing. He was excellent against Wycombe, didn't deserve to be on the losing team, great finishes. And one of my biggest criticisms for him was his control. I think his first touch has been absolutely appalling's not the right word, because how can a layman like me say appalling? But he's obviously improved as a footballer. That is another factor into what Richie Wellens has done to Leyton Orient. He's created an atmosphere that people want to improve, and they want to improve for themselves and improve for the team as well. So Rule Soteriou is grown as a footballer, and Richie Wellens has made that call, hasn't he? He's looked at his senior players that if you look at the spine of the team, he's taken out Beckles, Moncur, Pigott, and put in these players in these positions, and it's made a massive difference against a team, all right, that weren't ever going to win the league. That's exactly what Mark Bonner said.
And by the way, sorry, just to jump in there, because this thought has really occurred to me, Paxi. What a lovely position to be in, because if the 11 that you've got there somehow falters a little bit, which it will at certain moments, you've got Beckles, you've got Moncur, and you've got Joe Pigott to potentially bring into the team, as well as maybe one or two coming back from injury. What a lovely position that's to be in.
Well, it's not just there; it's all over the squad. I mean, Sol Bryn came back in Saturday, and another big call, because Sam Howes played really well. He was just getting into the speed of things, league football, and he played really well at Blackpool. Got man of the match, I believe. And so he was then taken out, and Sol Bryn put in, and Sol Bryn had a good game. But that's where we're at. We've now got Sam Howes, who's played some good games in League One,
Yeah.
and he's going to be pushing Sol Britain. So all over the park, I think there's only maybe one or two players in our team that are immovable objects as such. I would probably say that Theo Archibald is one, and I have no doubt you're going to ask me about. You're going to talk to me about Idris El-Mazouni, I'm sure.
Well, we can't. There's kind of a couple of points that you've kind of raised there. I do want to bring in at some stage Rob Walker of Blackpool and Ross Parkinson of Carlisle, but there's a couple of points that I do want to sort of raise there, and maybe Theo Archibald, how he stepped up to League One, has come as a bit of a surprise to me. First of all.
Well, he was in League One, wasn't he, with Lincoln? And I guess that sometimes you just need the belief of someone. I work in hospitality, and I couldn't count the number of people that I've just shown belief in that a lot of people have just turned around and discarded, And I guess that the Lincoln manager at the time, as football managers are, they have what they want, the end of the day, they fancy players, and if they don't fancy players, and for whatever reason, Theo Archibald wasn't fancied at Lincoln, we benefited from that, and I'm more than gracious. The guy is a quality player. There may be sometimes questions about his temperament, but then if you take his temperament away, what kind of player would he be? Sure. But he's become a senior player for us, and you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he's either the first or second name, probably the second name on the team sheet at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. And listen, I can't let you go without a quick word on Idris El-Mazouni. I mean, what a player he is.
I think that he is slowly becoming one of the best midfielders in League One. And now you can go, oh yeah, there's levels in League One, and we just had that conversation with Matt on the podcast. But El-Mazouni is growing as a footballer. He's obviously on loan for a reason. Ipswich don't want to let him go. There must be a reason for that, even if they are going hard for the Premier League. Now, if we were to keep El-Mazouni and we don't go up this year, which, or go down either way, and we stay in League One, I can guarantee you that another year in this boy, he will be the best central midfielder in League One. He can play in a multitude of positions in midfield. He's a great defensive player. He can push the ball forward. Might want to see a few more goals from the lad. Don't get me wrong. He could probably develop that, and no doubt that Richie Wellens will be developing him in that way. But to think you lose someone like a leader like Darren Prattley, and then El-Mazouni takes the armband off of Omar Beckles, and he is an exceptional talent. And you have to give credit, and a lot of Orient fans probably won't like this, but you have to give credit to Martin Ling and Richie Wellens for being able to bring players like El-Mazouni and Ed Turns back to League One, when I'm sure that there were clubs in the upper echelons of League One, your Derbys and your Portsmouth, who would have taken El-Mazouni at a drop of a hat, and some teams in the Championship as well. So, that I think, and I've said it before, we're in a good spot. I think we've been unlucky. And I know that a lot of football fans tend to say that a lot, but we have been unlucky. And once these players come back, we've got other players coming in. Ethan Galbraith was amazing at right back on Saturday, and it's not even a position we got him for. So think about the utility players we got. Jordan Brown, amazing. Dan Happy's finding his feet in League One. Ed Turns. Tom James had a good game on Saturday and set up a goal as well, and nearly scored one himself. I think as long as we don't have another rash of injuries like we did at the beginning of the season, I think we'll be fine. I think we're going to upset a few people, as we were predicted to do at the beginning of the season. I still say 16th is fine for me.
Perfect season.
But we'll see how the next few games go. I think they're ultimately winnable. And I think Stevenage, even though Matt's very foolishly gone for a 2-0 Stevenage win, I think they're going to get a bit of a whooping on Saturday. I think the old Orient are back, and the old new Orient is going to win on Saturday.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But listen, love yourself on the Lowdown podcast, and thanks for joining us, Paxi.
My pleasure.
Cheers. I do want to bring in Ross Parkinson in a few moments, but first of all, we're joined by Rob Walker of Blackpool. Thanks for joining us, Rob, and thanks for waiting. We really do appreciate your time. Just talk to me about how you're feeling as a Blackpool fan. I imagine you're a little bit disgruntled at the moment.
Yeah, I think after those first two games against Burton and Derby in the Cup, two 2-0 victories, 2 clean sheets. It was looking quite rosy, and then we've had 3 consecutive 0-0 draws, and then a sort of a poor performance at Lincoln, 3-0. So and obviously cup defeat yesterday against Wolves and other games. So that promising start has soon dwindled away, and there's a lot of question marks over Critchley, over the players, and the club as a whole, really. So it's gone from promising to quite frustrating.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. The loss at Lincoln then will take really, because I think the Wolves game was a bit of a one-off against Premier League opposition, and I think you can make some allowances for that. But I know there was a lot of frustration with Critchley after the Wolves game, but part of me maybe has some sympathy with him, because I suppose it wasn't Critchley who decided to dive in on Ben House very early on in that game and gave the penalty, which kind of set the tone for the game. Is there, to what extent are the problems at Blackpool down to coaching faults, and how much of it is down to individual errors?
Yeah, well, I think that game itself, I think we Blackpool started really well. I think the first 5-6 minutes we had 2 great chances. I mean, Callum Connolly probably should have scored from left wing back, which we'll come on to. And then out of the blue, a couple of sort of sloppy passes from Ollie Norburn and Ollie Casey. It falls to Lincoln striker, but going nowhere really. And Marvin Ekpiteta, who's having one of them seasons at the moment, just dives in needlessly, and it's 1-0. And then for me, that was the big test for Blackpool, because it was the first time we've gone behind in a game, and it's how can we react to that. And although I don't think it was a 3-0 game, I think Lincoln obviously scored 2 penalties. The goal did score, took a massive deflection. Grimshaw probably would have saved it if it hadn't hit Ekpiteta. But Blackpool didn't do enough, let's be fair. I've got no qualms with Lincoln beating us. They did more than us, and apart from a Jordan Rhodes shot at 1-0, we didn't really create a lot. And there's a lot of question marks over Critchley's persistence with this sort of 5-3-2, 3-5-2, however you want to label it. It doesn't seem to be suiting the personnel we've got, and it seems to be the same comments from the fan base, which is square pegs in round holes. So, of course, individual errors, you can't legislate for those, and it was really poor from Ekpiteta, who I don't think's looking settled in the back three. But I think Critchley, has got to take a large portion of the responsibility, because he's playing players out of position, which is, incredibly frustrating.
Well, talking of players out of position, you mentioned that deflected goal for Lincoln City, but what really struck me was that actually, if you look at the defending for that goal, Jordan Rhodes was actually doing the job of a midfielder, because he was chasing all the way back, and which shouldn't really be his job as one of 2 centre forwards. So does that show something's a bit off with the midfield at the moment?
Absolutely, Gab. Yeah, definitely. I think Ed's supporters game in a Blackpool shirt, he started really well, but that was a game that he would probably want to not look back on. He was probably at fault for all 3 goals. He was involved in the first goal with a poor pass. Obviously, the second goal he got caught out going forward, and he was nowhere to be seen. And then obviously the third goal he gave away the penalty and got sent off. But I do have some sympathy with him, that the fact that Dougal and Morgan, who were meant to be playing in that middle 3, were just absolutely nowhere. I've not watched the game back. I couldn't do it again after watching it once. But
don't do it, Rob.
I know. I can't what he's trying to do with the midfield, and Dougal and Morgan just didn't get involved, and I think Dougal got subbed at half time along with Ekpiteta. So Norburn obviously is the base of that midfield, and I know early stages, I think, is it Ben House, he was putting a lot of pressure under Norburn and giving away a few free kicks, and you could see that Norburn was getting frustrated with the referee. So that probably culminated, with the poor performance. So Lincoln, I think, played it absolutely spot on. So there are big issues with obviously the whole team, but that midfield, it didn't look right, and I felt a bit sorry for Norburn, because he was very exposed in the centre of the park.
What do you think are the things that Neil Critchley can do right now to troubleshoot the issues? Because obviously you've got a couple of days left of the transfer window. Are the solutions to the problems mainly in existing personnel, or do you think it's a case of we've got to bring in a couple of players?
It's probably a combination of both, Gab. I think, like I said before, playing players out of position, so 3-5-2, however you want to label it, and we have Callum Connolly playing left wing back. And Callum Connolly is a utility player. He's played right back, he's played centre back, he's played central midfield. He has never played left back. So he's playing on the left hand side, and you've got CJ Hamilton playing on the right hand side. And last season he was playing left wing. And I do get in modern day football, you have like inverted wingers, so like a Josh Bowler type player who likes to cut in. That's all well and good, but Callum Connolly and CJ Hamilton are not those players. So you're playing players who are not comfortable playing there, and then you've got a back three of Ekpiteta, Husband, and Casey. And the big problem for me is that because we're playing three at the back, you've got with one striker pressing, we're playing past the parcel along the back, we've got loads of possession, but we're doing absolutely nothing with it. And I think Ekpiteta, he just scares the living daylights out of me every time he gets the ball, because he's got more time on the ball because there's three defenders. He's having to think about it, and there's just so. I mean, I think every game there's been a mistake in there. And I'm sure the opposition managers are saying put Ekpiteta under pressure, and House did it well on last Saturday, to great effect. So for me, it's playing players in the right position. So we've got Dom Thompson who can play left wing back, even James Husband who has played left of the back three in the Port Vale game at home. Second half, he was the player who was getting the crosses in, so even he could play there. But playing Callum Connolly there is just, and I've got nothing against Callum Connolly. He's a very professional, 100% every week, but that is not his position. And the same with CJ Hamilton. I mean, CJ Hamilton gets a lot of stick on the socials. Now I do try and stick up for him, but he had a poor game. Let's not beat around the bush. He didn't get involved, but he's not playing in his best position. So it's whether we go back to a 4-4-2 and try and go back to what Critchley played in the Championship, or try and make this 5-3-2 work, but playing players where they should play. It's a big issue for us at the moment. And Critchley in the past was known for making changes. He every week. I remember he used to message me saying, "What's the team going to be this week?" And I didn't have a clue because he changed it every week. But at the moment, he's persevering this 5-3-2, and it's just baffling.
I suppose what doesn't help as well is the injury to Shane Lavery, Rob, because he scored twice on the opening day against Burton. I know when he came a couple of years ago, he came with great reviews from Northern Ireland, such an enthusiastic presser and all the rest of it. And I thought, in League One under Critchley, here we go. I don't think that helped at all. And I sort of wonder whether Jordan Rhodes has got the mobility that maybe Critchley might ideally want in a centre forward. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I think that's no frustration with Blackpool fans, the striking options. We obviously had Jake Beasley and Shane Lavery and Kyle Joseph. They were our three strikers at the start of the season. Kyle Joseph came with injury, and then he got another injury in training. So I think he played like 10 minutes in the Carlisle Cup in the first round. So we've not really seen any of him. And then if you're relying on Jake Beasley and Shane Lavery to play 90 minutes in 6-7 games in August, that's just not going to happen. So
and Beasley, I've heard links with Beasley making a move as well. So
yeah, potentially. I mean, but Beasley's not played properly for like 18 months up until this season. He had a horrendous injury last year, which kept him out all season. So, you're asking players to play Saturday, Tuesday, and it's just not possible. So there's no real option on the bench up until when we've signed Rhodes. And, I think 5 years ago, Jordan Rhodes would have been obviously a fantastic signing, but realistically, would he have been in League One then? Probably not. I mean, I actually thought Rhodes did okay. I thought he probably could have scored in the first half, but I thought he had, compared to the rest of the team, I thought he had a pretty decent game. So he did make some clever runs. He holds the ball up well. So I do think
he's still got that goal-scoring instincts as well.
Yeah, I mean, the on the club's official channel, one of the first questions was about the hunger. Have you still got the hunger? And he came across very enthusiastic, and he hasn't played a lot of football, so he wants to come here and play football. So I think the big thing for Jordan Rhodes is we have to give him service, and that's the big problem with our formation at the moment. We're not creating a lot of chances. I think the Leyton Orient game, which obviously was 0-0, I think apart from Lavery hitting the post in the second half, I think one shot in the first half, which the keeper made a good save. There wasn't a lot there. A lot of the ball again, like I say, passing it back to forwards, but there was no clear-cut chances. So that's the big thing for me. But the one positive today is, I don't know if you've seen the news, we've actually signed Dembele from.
Oh yes, I saw that. Yeah, that looks really exciting.
I don't know much about him. I know obviously when he was at Celtic, he was sort of marked as a wonder kid. Played I think at 15, 16 years old. So he's come from Brest on loan. So that's an interesting one. I think he could be a player that we need to give us a bit more unpredictability, because at the moment we just look very. When I'm watching Blackpool play, I can see the next pass. So I'm thinking, if I can see the next pass, the opposition can see it.
Yeah, well, hopefully that can change, and hopefully maybe there's be a change of formation, and maybe Dembele can have an impact, and Rhodes can score the goals, and everything clicks into gear. That's the hope, anyway. Thanks for joining us, Rob, and all the best for the rest of the season, mate.
Cheers, Gav. Thank you.
Cheers. My next guest is Ross Parkinson of Carlisle United. Thanks for your time, Ross. Thanks for waiting. We really do appreciate it. How are you feeling as a Carlisle fan at the moment? Because you seem to be quite confident that you were staying up when we did the summer deep dive. Has maybe the start of the season reintroduced fears as to whether Carlisle United are ready for League One? You need to unmute yourself, mate. If you can, in fact, I might be able to do it. There we go. You can't unmute your guest. Can you unmute yourself? Try the headphones. There we go. Hopefully. I tell you what, while you work that one out, you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, we're there. I was going to bring
It's 2 for 1.
For
some reason it wouldn't work.
Well, I might as well talk to you both now, seeing as you've made
go for
journeys and you've both come up from League Two. Great to have you on, Danny. Really appreciate your time as well. But we'll come to Ross first. How are you feeling as a Cumbrian right now?
It's not been the best to start, but I think it's pretty clear what the problem is. We just don't look like a threat up front. I don't actually necessarily think in a lot of games that isn't because we're not putting the balls in the right areas. I just don't think we're getting anyone in there like a Christian Dennis that would have maybe put a couple of these chances away. So I think the key for us, if we're going to keep playing the way we're playing, is we are desperate for a target man. Absolutely desperate. We've been linked with 20 or 30 strikers in the window. We've got a few in. We've got a few good ones. Sean Maguire's a good signing. But I think we are in desperate need of one more, and that needs to be a big target man who can hold the ball up.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's a huge priority, Ross. But I do want to also talk about the decision to let go of Christian Dennis, because I think when it actually happened, there was a bit of a narrative, maybe I bought into it as well, that Ryan Edmondson's really underrated, that we're going to get in, better strikers, maybe strikers who can do more individualistically. So get us up the pitch. Christian Dennis is more of a poacher. Is he going to have as many opportunities to do that? There's lots of reasons that I think Carlisle fans sort of bought into to say that Christian Dennis, releasing Christian Dennis was the right thing to do, which I can understand. But then also on the other hand, he does bring that bit of movement in the box, that bit of devilment, and he scored 19 goals last season. And maybe I'm kind of wondering, were we too quick to sort of accept the decision to release someone who scored 19 goals the year before?
I don't actually think he's as big a miss as Patrick,
Oh, really?
What Dennis brings, I think we do have players that could potentially do that, but I think one of the biggest problems we've had this season is we are not able to break those lines like Patrick does. There's only really Gibson in the squad that can do that, can really beat a man. And Amari, although he didn't score enough goals really, and he left because he wanted to play on the left wing rather than Thing. And ironically, we're now playing 3 up top a lot of games. So he probably would have played on the left wing quite a lot this season. I think he's the bigger miss of the two. As good as Dennis was, don't get me wrong, Dennis was excellent for us. I think when Dennis left, it was for the right reasons, really. He's getting a bit more money at Tranmere. It's a bit close to his house. It's a longer-term deal. I think when we're looking to move forward, I don't think you can be keeping a lad to his age for 2 or 3 years if you're looking to step on. There's potential we're going to get taken over in the next month or two as well.
Really? Can you give us a bit of an update on that?
Yeah, so it's now kind of out in the press. It was the Piatek family. I might not have pronounced that right. They're Americans. They are part owners of Jacksonville Jags and a few other businesses. They went to Wembley, they went to the Bradford games, they have been to a couple of games already this season and one of the pre-season friendlies, and they were at the Exeter game the other day. So I think initially this first 6 months of the season is going to be stay in the fight, don't get cut adrift. And then we look again in January when maybe we can attract a little bit of a higher standard of player, because at the minute we have a budget that was at the lower end of League Two last season. And although it's higher, I would be very surprised if it's not the lowest or in the bottom 2 or 3 of this league. So that's been the big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you seem quite strong in your view that bring in the right target man and it's going to click into place. But speaking to Port Vale fans, for instance, maybe I've simplified your point of view, but just kind of let's kind of run with that for the moment. I spoke to a few Port Vale fans about the game on Saturday, and they said they weren't necessarily that great, but they didn't feel like they had to get out of second gear, which makes me worry. Is there a bit of a quality problem with Carlisle United? Because Port Vale are...
I just think we haven't got that outlet. That's why I was just talking about Patrick before. We haven't got that outlet, so teams are able to... We've got Lavelle and Hunt playing at the back, both good players, not the quickest. So what we had last season is we were able to get out and give those lads a break, especially Huntington, who's late 30s now. Give those lads a break and get on the ball higher up the pitch and have that threat in behind so teams couldn't press us. At the minute, we haven't really got that threat in behind. I mean, we've signed Ablade or Ablade, however you pronounce it.
Oh, yeah, he's supposed to be really quick, isn't he?
Yeah, so maybe that'll give us that. And Maguire's he's not super fast, but he's not slow either. So maybe we can start to get out of that. But I think at the start of the season, we've just not been able to hold the ball up top long enough. And then the pressure comes and we make one mistake. And the difference between last season and this season is you make a mistake and you get punished. Danny's probably seen that with Northampton as well.
100%, yeah.
Do you want to expand on that then, Danny?
Oh, well, yeah, like Ross was saying, it's exactly that. The first away game we had, Wigan away, we were at one end, missed a clear chance at the back post. Patrick Brough put one right across the goal. 2 seconds later, Callum McManaman's got the ball and he's shooting into the top corner. Following Tuesday night against Lincoln, ball comes across the pitch. I can't remember who it was who scored it, but it took a touch and just smashed it into the top corner. And that's the difference between League Two and League One. You can't give people players that space, and it's just that like learning curve of, and I think we're starting to kind of get it now. We've kept, I want to say a good team, but we've kept a team at bay from down the road, which was beautiful, with very good players in it. So we are learning, I think. But it is just that kind of split second thing can happen in League One that just would never happen in League Two. Like the player wouldn't have flicked it up in League Two and even attempted it. And then, we're obviously seeing the same kind of things in terms of the step up.
Well, with that in mind then, Danny, why do you think you found the step up from League Two a little bit easier than Carlisle?
I don't know, necessarily easier. We've just found a way, like we did at the end of last season. What typified us last season was finding a way to win. Like we never won a game 3 or 4-0. We never hammered teams. It was always about finding a way. We found a way at Sutton on a Tuesday night. We found a way at Tranmere on the last day. We found a way to grab points when we would have lost them this year before. And we're doing it again this season. That to beat Peterborough the way we did. You can call it whatever you want. We still managed to get over the line and win a derby for the first time in 17 years. To win it like that, we found a way at Cheltenham to go and get a result on the weekend. And just, we're not coming out and storming against teams. We just seem to have that togetherness that John Brady is leading with, and the team are leading with. That we've got that continuity quite spot on, I think, this season. And like keeping the players on, we've got a good policy in place in terms of keeping players on longer contracts. And so the summer's been quite smooth from our point of view. We've only had to bring in 3 or 4 decent players to continue that work, and they're then quite clear they're only going to bring in characters that are going to fit in with what we've already got or make it better. And that seems to have been pretty much the case so far. So it's just that continuity thing, I think, for us.
Would you say the defensive strength has been the main positive of your season so far?
I mean, I'd say so. We're putting together quite a few good moves going forward as well. We've kept that going. Obviously, Hoskins is doing it in League One, which is I'm so happy for him because he's had a lot of detractors in League One before, where people, our own fans, have said, he's a League Two striker, he's a League Two attacker, that he can't do it in League One, and he's proven them wrong. just because of what John Brady gets out of him. So we got that in the bag. Mitch Pinnock stepped up well. Louis Apres stepped up pretty well as well. His leading line is challenging Tyree Simpson for that striker's role. But yeah, having John Guthrie in there, massive amount of experience. I think if we lose him, we'll be in a little bit of trouble because he just leads that back two or back three, whatever it is that we play. It differs from week to week. He's got that experience just to kind of keep the calm heads. And Sam Sherrin as well really stepped up well this season and kept going from what he did last season. So yeah, solid enough. We're starting to move into a little bit of a different formation and things like that. But
what's your formation now?
It tends to be 3-5-2. We can move it around a bit to a 4-2-3-1. But again, it seems to have just been a smooth transition from last season. We've got the loanees back of Kieran Bowie and Mark Leonard, and just having that type of quality.
That was getting Mark Leonard.
Yeah, and again, he's absolutely thriving in League One as well. There's sometimes League Two midfield can be a little bit up and at him. I think he's even getting more space in League One than he did in League Two to do his thing. And he's just, you could tell the quality he's got and that Brighton sense that he's got. That you watch Brighton play and you just see he's got that quality about him. So yeah, really happy to have him back.
Absolutely. Ross, what have been the main positives for Carlisle then from your start to the season?
Aside from the obvious one of Moxon, who's stepped up really well, I actually think our best player so far has been Jordan Gibson.
Interesting. Okay.
He's still a little inconsistent, but if he wasn't inconsistent, he wouldn't be playing in League One or to League Two. But he's been the one who has surprised me the most in terms of how he's taken to the level. He looks like a League One footballer. He's been very good. There's a few of them have struggled with the step up and not really shown what they can do, what they did last season. But he's probably, considering he was out of the team towards the end of last season, he's really stepped up and been the sort of highlight, really.
Yeah, that sounds really hopeful. Do you feel like you're close if you can get the right one or two additions between now and the end of the window?
I think holding on to Moxon's key, and thankfully the club have been really strong on that. He's been made an offer that would make him, I believe, the highest paid player at the club. That was made some weeks ago and he hasn't signed it, which suspects to me that he's not going to sign it.
Right.
But it seems like the club are willing to risk him going at the end of the season for free because we got him for nothing at the end of the day, rather than cash in now and thing, which I actually prefer. If the bid from Blackpool, which was rumoured to be 250k, I'd rather have him than 250k. It seems the club have put 900 grand on him as the price.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to pay that if it's.
No, I think it's probably out there to get something close to that. But
do you think Owen Moxon would be a little bit frustrated that the club are putting that sort of price tag on him?
No, I think because he knows he can go at the end of the season, and he knows a good season in League One probably gets him another couple of grand a week wherever he goes. So he's got a short career. Good luck to the lad if he goes wherever he goes. He's been excellent for us, far better than anyone could have expected. But back to your original question, the thing for us, if we get a target man and you can have Maguire playing off a target man, and potentially even Edmondson, who's been extremely disappointing so far this season, because I, like you, thought he would really kick on and this was his opportunity. If he can play off a target man as well, and because he's quicker than he looks, I think we'll get enough points to be in the mix come January, and then we can have a look at what we need in January.
With the new ownership, hopefully the purse strings can open a little bit. Yeah, well, fingers crossed for that. I do still always feel a little bit uneasy about the risk of letting such a massive asset go for free. But I can also understand the club's stance that if we're not getting the sort of offers we think the player deserves, then I can kind of understand why they would go that way. So
yeah, I think 250 grand when you're talking nearly 400 allegedly for Luke Armstrong. 250 grand for the player who was in the League Two Team of the Year yesterday. I think is well below the level.
Yeah. But then I do think that 900 is unrealistic. So I hope that
I think we're probably open to get about 750 in the real world. But we'll see. Depends how many clubs come in, because there's a lot of championship interest and stuff. So
yeah, we will. I think 750 is ambitious. I think 500 would be a good selling price, just because I think it's hard to ignore that sort of money. And I would just always be, reluctant to let players go for nothing, because it's hard to really build something if you keep letting key assets go for free. So that's kind of my sort of stance on it. But I also understand he's a really important player, and hopefully he can help keep Carlisle in League One. Danny, what have Northampton got to do to make sure that you get over the line? And anything that you need to try and improve on, or
just maybe in front of goal a little bit? I'd say we're doing enough to win games at the minute. We might be missing something slightly different up front. I think we've got obviously Tyrese Simpson through the door. You've got Apare stepping up. Like I said earlier, Hoskins signed a new deal today. So happy with that he's staying for a little bit longer, and it's getting to testimonial stage now with him, which is mad. Like, I think at the end of his deal it'll be 11 years if he stays, which is madness in today's day and age. But in terms of what we need, not a lot. I think it would be good to get a couple more, like one or two bodies in attacking wise, if we could, something a little bit different. There's rumours there's potentially one, I think. I'm not sure. We got no rumours about names or anything, but I think John Brady is looking at an attacker before the end of the window on Friday. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully you can get in someone who can unlock a few doors for you. But listen, great start. Good luck to the Cobblers for the rest of the season. Likewise to United. Hopefully the last couple of days the window goes well for you. Keep up the great work, Danny, as well, with Cobblers To Me. This has been EFL Debate League One podcast. Thanks to you for watching at home, and we'll see you again very soon.